It's so great to see folks here on a beautiful night together again. I can't tell you what a difference it makes for our school community to be as full and lively and vital on campus as it has been this year after such a long period of time. We're living without so many things that matter to us. So it's wonderful to see you. I'm glad to see you're appropriately spread out. That's good. It is chilly in here because our systems, we just transitioned from really warm, humid weather to this weather, and it takes a little time. So I see people bundled up and looking cozy, but that's why it's a little cool in here. So I'm Rich Norrie, head of school, and welcome. Let's start with some shared moments of silence and stillness. We're a very full community this year with lots of new folks joining the AFS community. So if you are new this year, could you raise your hand to the AFS community? Welcome. We're really glad to welcome you and your kids. It's my role to give a few opening remarks, and so I will, and then I'll turn things over to Matt. And we've got a unique format for open house tonight, and we look forward to sharing your child's daily life with you, such as it is. One of the things that I've been really filled with is watching your children have life breathed back into them by the fullness of a real school life. The life in classrooms, life in the hallways, on the playing fields, in the art studios, making music. It has been so inspiring and gratifying to see. And I'm reading a book right now that's making me look at that whole process with a different set of eyes and helping me understand our program in so many ways. So I think I'll share some of those ideas with you because it might inform how you look at what you see tonight as well. So the book is called The Extended Mind by Alice Murphy Paul. She's a science journalist who's been working on this book for many, many years. She has gone deep, deep into the research. And the thesis of the book is that we overemphasize the brain in the ways that we think about cognition because we are evolved to have minds that extend far beyond the brain. We extend our mind into our bodies, into the environments that we function in, and between the bodies and minds of other people that we work with. And she talks about each of those: embodied cognition, and situated cognition, and distributed cognition. And I want to say a little bit about each one of those because I think it's a really powerful set of insights about the types of things that really nourish development in children, and actually have a lot to say about our own ideas about productivity and product paradoxes for us as adults. So embodied cognition talks about the role of our bodies in learning, growing, thinking, and working. And so with our bodies, there are a few things to observe. One is we're wired to move. We are evolved to be in motion. And this idea that we would sit still all day and that would nourish the fullness of our thinking capacity and creativity is a real fallacy. Because we do better when we move. I know I do. This is so much better than being in Zoom. When I do the talk on Zoom, I can't really formulate my ideas because staring straight and being stuck, it sticks in my mind. And there are studies that show too that gestures dramatically increase our fluency, our verbal fluency, when we can do this. And when we can look around, and when we can let our eyes wander. So movement is a part of who we are and how we think. Another piece that was fascinating to me was thinking about how our bodies relate to our connection to other people. So you probably know that when we are talking to other people, we often mirror their posture. Because our posture carries a lot of information about the inner state of a person. And by mirroring another person's posture, you're actually creating an interior sense that is similar to the person you're talking to. I thought that's a fascinating idea, that we can get into the state of the person that we are communicating with by mirroring their posture. And finally, our bodies store vast amounts of data every day. You know, our conscious minds are actually a fairly small and limited space. There's only so much that it can take in. But our bodies are taking in information all the time. And it forms the basis of an intuition. You know, whether you feel butterflies in your stomach, or a little bit of excitement about something, or this feeling of dread that you don't know where it's coming from, those are all ways that your body is kind of tugging on the sleeve of your brain and saying, pay attention, something important is happening here. So the body is an important part of the way that we extend our minds beyond our brains. And the other thing that's interesting about the relationship of our brains to our bodies, our Western civilization teaches us that the body is kind of the grubby animal, and our brain is the elevated part of our humanity. And this research tends to show us that actually, no, it's actually a very important part of how we learn, grow, and work. The second cognition she talks about is situated cognition, which is really about the ways in which the environment really matters to us as human beings. Where we are influences how we think, what's available to us for thinking. And I want to share just a couple of things that I think are really meaningful. One is the value of spatial experience. We are inescapably spatial beings, and we encode experience spatially and effortlessly. And that becomes a basis for the way we ideate, the way that we make ideas. So I'll give you an example. There are two types of memory. There's taxon memory, which is memorized information for a purpose. The shopping list, directions to someone's house, phone number. Taxons are made memorable by memorization, rehearsal. They're really stable pieces of information. If I learn your phone number, it doesn't change the other phone numbers I know. There's no interaction between the two of them. And they are instrumental, they're for a purpose. There's another type of memory that is so effortless to us that we don't even know we're doing it. And that is called locale memory. That's L-O-C-A-L-E. And it is the memory with which we effortlessly encode space around us. If you go to somebody's house for the first time for dinner, when you get home, you have the layout of their house effortlessly in your mind. You didn't have to work at that. You didn't have to stand in the dining room, living room, got it. You know? You go home because you encode space so effortlessly. Even more interesting than that, though, is that our ideas themselves, because we're spatial beings, spatial experience is part of our cognitive experience. Our ideas are three-dimensional. That's what makes writing so hard. Even when I was in grad school, I found writing to be an excruciating process, even though I like to write. And I thought, well, it's just because you haven't figured out what you need to say. I just need to do a better job of it. But then I took a cognitive science class on writing and learned that the process of turning your three-dimensional ideas into a linear experience, which is writing, is a lot of work. So we think spatially, and that is based on the spatial experience that we have every day. We're also wired from nature. Being outside, there's so much refreshing information in the outdoors that refreshes and replenishes attention, that resets the focal length of our eyes. And that I was sitting in the meeting house yesterday for meeting for worship. I was near a door where the breeze was coming through. It totally freshened my spirit and woke me up. So nature and that environment is important to us as well. Finally, this concept of distributed cognition. So distributed cognition is the fact that we think with other people. Thinking is dialogic, you know? In fact, there's this idea from Soviet developmental psychology that all of our internal thinking is in fact dialogic too. Everything is in response to something else. But when you think about it, when we think with other people, we look at things from various perspectives. We ask questions of each other. We challenge assumptions. We refine thoughts with each other. And this is what our kids do every day. They are doing some thinking on their own, then they loop those ideas through the minds of other people, and they come back transformed and ready to take them the next step. And that social interaction of thinking together becomes the basis of higher order thinking that's internalized. We internalize that ability to think from multiple perspectives, forwards and backwards, put ourselves in another position, anticipate another point of view. All of that comes from the social experience of distributed cognition. So what all of this argues for is an incredibly varied, a day of incredibly varied experience. All of these types of experiences feed the development, nourish the development of your children. And so there's a reason why we don't have them sitting in rows all day at desks, copying things down. They have to be active in this environment. They have to have some time to think by themselves. They need directed thought and undirected thought. Some of our best ideas and breakthroughs come from undirected thought. They need that balance of those things. They need to be indoors and outdoors. They need to be moving, and they need some time to settle, like the silences that we give them. And so every day, your child's day includes a lot of social interaction, super important, unmediated by devices, refreshing periods of silence, lots of play, and opportunities for undirected thought to complement the periods of highly directed thinking. They're indoors and outdoors. They have choices to make. They learn to listen to their own minds, bodies, and spirits. So I hope that this view of the way in which our brains are extended in these ways will inform some of the ways that you look at your child's daily experience here. You're in great hands tonight. You have a fabulous group of teachers who are eager to share their work with you, and Matt Eskin is here to tell you about what's next this evening. Thank you.
Good evening. It really is wonderful to see everybody here. I'm just thrilled to be in person with you all. I know for some people that creates a level of anxiety, but it's one that I know we can push through together as I and the teachers have been really for the last year and a half. So again, welcome. It is wonderful to see you all here this evening. I'll try and be brief. We're going to do some introductions. I'm going to share a few of the things that I've been thinking about kind of philosophically, and then I'm going to share where you're going next. So I want everybody to just take about 15 seconds to close your eyes and with gratitude, think about what it's like for our faculty to come every day wearing their masks, deeply invested in curricular ideas, deeply invested in the development of your children, and you can open your eyes now. And at the same time, having to set limits and new limits that we've had to develop because of COVID protocols, and the old limits have still existed like they always did. And I can't overstate the amount of effort and fortitude that the folks who are sitting over here have had to muster to do what they care about most, which is educating your children. So I want us to take a minute. One of the things growing up as a guy and I went after elementary school to an all-boys school. People tell you, you can't cry in public, and when I think about the work they're doing, it chokes me up because it is that important and it's that valuable. And so I just want us to take a minute to hold the teachers in the light for what they've been through this pandemic. So. I get to occasionally hide in my office, they don't. So I wanted to do some introductions also, and So we have a relatively new, not totally new, administrative assistant in the middle school who's a total rock star, Crystal. Crystal's the person who will call you if your child's absent and you forgot to let us know, and she will gently remind you to let us know ahead of time. She gently reminds me of things too. So, we have an amazing group of grade deans in Erin Timmer. Julie Morrissey is not here. She is on maternity leave. Yay, Julie. She's having a wonderful time at home. We're so happy for her. Mark Smith currently is filling in as the 7th grade dean, but for all of you 7th grade families, believe me, when Julie returns after Thanksgiving, you'll get to know her, and your children will be lucky to be in her presence. CJ Miller is our 6th grade dean. And Ann Fields is our 5th grade dean. Wonderful group playing important leadership roles at the grade level in the lives of your children. And Mark Smith, who's been an incredible support to me and an amazing assistant middle school director. So. We also have an amazing student support team in Megan Asplund, Ebony Holloway, who's here. Ebony is also a middle school parent and lower school parent. Kevin Ryan, Mike Casano, Mark coordinates those meetings, so you'll hear from him, or you should reach out to him if you're interested in engaging our student support team for your child. And we have an incredible, incredibly hardworking all-school nurse in Susan Harris. Mikhail Yisrael is our director of equity and engagement, equity, justice, and engagement. And I just wanted to lift up that a week from this evening, we'll be doing an open house hosted by Mikhail and Rich to really share with families a lot of the important equity work that we're doing here at school. And we have a really robust Home and School Association led by our Director of Parent Engagement, Sloan Waldman. And you'll be hearing from her. Home and School is restructuring a little bit, and so keep your eye out for emails from Sloan inviting you to some open houses to learn more about Home and School and how you can get involved in the life of our school. So when I'm not running around dealing with my own children, I'm also the parent of an AFS middle schooler, by the way. I have a 7th grader, Lev, and I also have a 2nd grader, Gracie, and they keep me busy. I'm doing the carpool thing too. When I'm not doing that, on those days I send them home in the bus, and I get to drive home by myself. Oh my gosh. Put your hand up if you love those drives all by yourself right now. They are amazing. And not quite frequent enough. There are some things that have really been running around my mind, and one of them is evolution, and the other is this idea of the duality of fragility and fortitude. So I want to start off thinking about evolution a little bit. This is one definition. There are multiple definitions of evolution, and so, but the gradual development of something, especially from a simple form to a more complex form. So what are we trying to do here in the middle school at AFS? We're constantly asking this question of ourselves. How can our students have a positive impact on the social and intellectual evolution of their communities in the world? Our communities in the world is evolving constantly, and it's changing at rates that most of us can't keep up with. I know that, I've always been super outdated my whole life. I just can't keep up with the trends, but now more than ever, because they change so quickly. So I'm talking about Facebook, and the kids are looking at me like, you're still on Facebook, and I can't even name the things that your kids are interested in on the internet. I just can't keep up. But we're thinking about this deeply. We're thinking, how do we engage your kids in a way that makes them feel like, and makes them know, because it's actually not a feeling, makes them know that the way they engage in the world, intellectually and socially, has an impact on the way the world evolves. Whether it's in a small way, in a small community like our school community, or in a bigger way by the way they engage in ideas, by the way they engage people outside of the walls here. And we try and do this, I was thinking, in these 3 different ways. We're constantly exploring ideas, we're constantly asking kids to create things, and then we're constantly trying to change things. And at the same time that we're trying to change things, we're changing ourselves by the knowledge that we've captured, or by the ways we've grown in our thinking. And this moves me to the next point of fragility and fortitude. And I'll pause for a minute to talk about my drive over to school, where I was pulling up to a stop sign, and it was a 4-way stop, and I was maybe the 3rd car back. And a car that was at the stop sign to my left was maybe pulled a foot out into the intersection. And the car passing them laid on the horn. And it wasn't one of those like, let me honk at you. It was, let me honk at you. It was like holding the horn for much longer than the horn needed to be held. And this is what I feel like the world is like right now. There is a lot of long horn honking going on in the world right now. And can I get one of these if you like are experiencing that at all? There's a lot of long horn honking. And it's upsetting to me, and it's something that we're really trying to push against here at school. We don't want to send kids out into the world who lay on the horn for no good reason when a simple little beep beep would have sufficed. It would have said you pulled out into the intersection. And maybe you don't even need to honk when they're in the intersection this far. And then, if you're a spiritual person, thank God. And then, as I pulled up to the stop sign, I witnessed another person sticking their arm out the window and waving somebody on. And it reminded me that both of these things exist. That there are people who constantly want to wave other people on and want to step out of the way and give somebody else the right of way. And they want to do it in a really generous, spirited way. The irony of this is that the person who's laying on the horn thinks they have a lot of fortitude, and we experience this getting out of the way as fragility, and I see it the other way around. It takes strength to get out of the way. It takes strength to pay attention to the way other people are experiencing the way you move through the world. And interestingly, and as an aside, or not an aside, but parallel to that, our students have experienced a level of fragility and fortitude that we didn't grow up with living through this pandemic. They have seen mass death in front of them in a way that is horrifying. And they have seen this fortitude of humanity. They've seen people coming together. They've seen people fighting for what's right. They've seen scientists creating shots that allow us to push through a pandemic at rates that we've never experienced before. So they're experiencing this duality in a way that they can't possibly totally internalize. But I think it's incumbent upon us also to try and leverage this moment for them. And so I started thinking, like, what's really fragile? Well, life is fragile. It is. I mean, people can walk out the door and lose their life. Life is fragile. But human beings are not. Human beings are filled with fortitude. And something that I've experienced as an educator over the last 20 years is that we the grown-ups in their lives, have developed ways of engaging that also often make them feel and see themselves as way more fragile internally than they actually are. And that is not to diminish the fragility of life. that exists and the complexity of life that exists. It is to say, though, that these kids who are in our presence every day have wells of fortitude. They are capable of managing so much. They are capable of doing so much. And we have a role to play in reminding them of that all the time. Because the other thing about middle schoolers that I'm sure you can all appreciate is that you can't say it once. We have to remind them and remind them and remind them. And whether it's pick up your clothes and put them in the hamper, or please can you help with the dishes, or looking at them and telling them it's amazing how they're handling this when they're ready to fall apart, telling them that they're strong and can handle the difficult things that they face in life, emotionally, physically. Us sending them that message helps shape their view of themselves. And we can't remind them of that enough. And not in some way that's filled with platitudes that when they're actually not seeing inside themselves that they're strong, telling them, oh, you handled that so well. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting this genuine reflection back to them that they are capable of so much, that they are capable of reaching out for help when they need it. They're capable of taking care of themselves and others. They're capable of waving somebody on in an intersection that makes that other person feel seen or known or heard. And those are the things that fill them up inside. So I just want to leave you with, as you get a chance to visit classrooms, meet teachers, engage in the content that's going on here, know that all of us, everybody sitting over there, all of our teachers and educators, and what we see in your kids is their capacity for greatness. And that's what we're trying to lift up for them and for you. So hope you have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and enjoy exploring their classrooms. So this is, I'll leave this up. We'll have the 8th grade families are going to stay in the Muller. 7th grade families, you can see based on who your child's advisor is, where you're going. 6th grade is going to the black box, which is out the door and to the right down the hallway and then left. And the 5th grade is going to be moving on to advisory rooms. So let's just stay in the auditorium for a minute while we allow faculty to go to start getting where they need to go. And I really do hope you have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Thank you. So I know we sent maps out, and you'll also get maps from your advisor or grade dean when you go to visit the rooms. If you're not sure where the rooms are, the 5th grade rooms, well, everybody except the folks going to the black box and the folks staying here are going to walk down the hallway that way. The art room is at the very end of the hallway. And then the classrooms are to the right of the hallway, and they're well labeled. So again, I'll be in the hallways. If you want to come say hello, if you have questions for me, I'll be making my way around, and I just hope you have a really, really wonderful evening. Thank you.